Alright, today we get a Kenwood TS-2000 on the bench. The complaints are low speaker, internal speaker sounds low, internal speaker, external speaker low, headphones okay, speaker number 20K. So let's test the external speaker. I have my little cheapo external speaker over here, and we're going to test see what that sounds like.
Western part of Germany, true, okay?
That actually sounds pretty good.
Okay, bye-bye, and all the best, DJ. So you are duly recording the station with beginning with Kilo.
Alright, so I can't verify that the external speaker is low because it's working very good here. The external speaker that he may have hooked up to it may be something wrong with it. But external speaker port seems to work okay. Here, let's unplug it and try the internal.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much for the 59 from the state of New York.
Alright, that sounds raspy. That sounds a little...
Mike.
That speaker sounds a little cruddy, so we'll pop the top cover off and see if the speaker may be half blown or something, or it's got some holes in it. It should. I mean, this is relatively not that old of a radio, so I don't know. Maybe it's just you know, defective speaker or something. So we're going to take the cover off, check the speaker, measure the resistance across it, check, make sure it's not stuck or anything, or anything obstructing it, and then what we'll do is we'll hook up, we'll solder a temporary speaker in place of the case speaker to see if that makes any difference, to make sure it's not an onboard amplifier, audio amplifier to the speaker. So that'll be the easiest check first, so we'll start there. Alright, so at first glance here, I flipped the radio over and I saw somebody's been in here already. So that screw is just a couple of threads in. So I think somebody's been after this once before, so we'll see what happens. Alright, so what I did was I checked the speaker out. It seems to be okay. I checked it against my other external speaker. I just hooked it up temporarily to the wires. It was low and a little bit distorted, and so I decided to come here to the schematic on the service manual, and I found the IC here that audio frequency power amplifier IC9, and I'm checking the circuit, all the components in the circuit, the surrounding circuit. I thought maybe they're possibly electrolytic or something, and so I went over to the chassis, and that's the IC right there. And look what I found next to the IC and the audio cables. These capacitors here are dead. That one split open. All the electrolytics probably sprayed out of it. And that one, I don't know if you can see it, but it's just starting to bulge a bit. Really can't see it on camera, but it's definitely noticeable by the naked eye. It's just getting a slight bulge. So I'm going to replace these two caps, because these audio cables here go all the way up through the chassis into the front, and probably on the top board and wherever, into the microphone, I mean the headphone jacks and stuff. So these two caps here are the two that feed the C339, feed the 6.5 volts into this IC, and I think the other one is the 401. I'll have to double check that number right now. No, yeah, C401. So yeah, these two these two capacitors feeding the 6.59 volts into the IC is probably not there. If it is, it's very minimal or low. So I'm going to change them out, and we'll start from there. I just double checking everything here. Turn down the radio. Yeah, this board has to come out. So look at all this. A lot of uncabling to do. Gotta pull all this stuff off the board. All these ribbon cables gotta come out. All the chassis screws and whatever screws are holding on your connectors. It doesn't look like there are any. It looks like they're just through hole, pass through. They don't look like anything's pretty much. Once you get it separated from the chassis, it should just slide back and up and out. So just gonna have to mark all these cables and find out, make sure they go back into the same spot. Everything looks like it's color coded for the most part. These cables here pretty much straight back, so I don't think there'll be any messing that up. And so yeah, like I said, I got the service manual. So it's not a big deal anyway. And a lot of these cables are actually lengthening to the point where they only will connect to. So like that one won't fit here. That one could fit here. So you got to be careful with some of the stuff. You got to take good documentation when you take this stuff apart. Especially like here and here. These two could be swapped by accident. And a few other things, like these two are identical. These two connectors, the audio connectors. Actually, no, that one's 4-pin, that one's 3-pin, so that one you won't have to worry about. Yeah, so something like that right there, that's a perfect example of how you can swapping something around. This one actually looks like it goes through the bottom of the board and goes to another board on the bottom. So yeah, just take a good note of where everything goes if you're gonna do any kind of work on the 2000 here, because there are some confusing points. So I'll be back after I pull the board up and out, and we'll take a look at the bottom and see what we can get for a match on these caps. See if we have something in stock that we can throw in there. Alright, so we'll see you in the next take. And another thing I wanted to mention about these ribbon cables, because a lot of people get confused on what kind of ribbon cables these are. Like this one, for instance, here. This one here is just held in there by tension, so you can wiggle this one out. Alright? See, you can tell that that one there does not have a lock. If they have a lock, do not pull them out, because you can potentially pull the pads right off the ribbon cable. You can usually tell this if the socket will look like, if you can actually see the pins on the socket. I'm not going to get too technical with names and terms, but I don't have the right lens on this camera, so you can't really tell all that well. But you'll see the surface pins that mate with this. If you can see that, they usually typically will pop right out. And here's an example of another one that has a lock. See how you can't see any pins? What you got to do is you got to lift each end of the brace that holds the cable. Actually pushes down all the pins against the ribbon cable. So what you got to do is you got to lift this side up and this side up. Pretty close about the same time. So I usually either use a screwdriver like this, or my fingernail, whatever works. And I'm going to see if I can get my fingernail under there. Hear the click? It's hard to film this here at the same time. Here it popped up. Now this ribbon cable will just fly right out of there. So yeah, don't confuse these locking ribbon cable connectors with the ones that are just zero insertion. You know, you just put it in. So yeah, we got another one here and here, and just a little tip there. So we'll be back. Okay, so I've disconnected all these cables, the ribbon cables from the board here. I told you guys about the you know, the shielded cable connections to the board, and when you pull them up, to be careful. A good way to keep in mind where everything goes is lay it out on a piece of paper like this. You know, red, black. Try to lay it out the way it looks. Yellow there, green, gray, and white right there. So there'll be no confusion when you go to put this back. You know, because these two look like they could be easily put in the wrong spot. So, and possibly the black and the yellow. But just a good thing to follow when if you're doing any kind of repair on this stuff. Because if you put something in the wrong spot, I mean, you're going to be driving yourself crazy. You know, unless you get a picture or even a digital photo or something. You know, I'm documenting this on a video camera too, so if I have the need to reference anything, I'll have it. So we're almost ready to start pulling the chassis screws out to remove this this board here. So I think the next shot will be this board will be lifted. All right, I've got the board out here, and there's a lot of chassis screws in this. I don't know, about 12, 15 of them or something like that. A lot of cables. A lot to take out that board. It only took about 10 minutes or so. So I've got hooked up to the capacitor, to the two capacitors we're looking at here, and this is the one that just had a tight bulge on the top, but not too bad. And the other one behind it is the one that's completely split open. And I got it hooked up to an Esr meter, equivalent series resistance meter. It's actually a kit that I built. It's made by the Blue Esr company or something, Anatech Corporation actually. Designed by Bob Parker. Actually, very nice piece of equipment to have on your bench if you're doing a lot of electrolytic replacements. This is way better than the capacitance checker because this doesn't just check capacitance, it checks the resistance. It actually throws a frequency at it, and it measures all sorts of things. You can actually read about it on Wiki if you want to know more details. It's called an Esr meter, and it'll tell you a lot about it. Need for measurement, principle of operation, the whole 9 yards. So basically what it does is you hook up the meter and it spits out a number here, and you have a chart here that shows you voltage versus resistance. You try to line it up as best as you can with the, you see we got a 25 volt cap at 470 microfarad capacitor. I actually printed out a little better chart than the one that comes on here. It's actually on my wall right here. Sometimes that chart can be a little confusing. So 25 volts at 470 microfarad should be around 0.25 for an ideal capacitor. And we have 0.32. It's not too bad. I would say it's tolerable. So that may not need replacement, but if I can find two capacitors, I'm going to change them both. And this one here is the one that's just completely split open. Be surprised if we even get any reading on this one. Shut off on me. Yeah, this one's not even reading the capacitance at all. Kind of disappointed because I wanted to show you guys what a bad capacitor would look like in resistance. It starts going through the roof once before, but this one's completely split open, and it's probably lost a lot of its, or all of its electrolytic substance in it. So a bad capacitor will have a very high high resistance or a very low resistance, depending on how it failed. Very nice device. I like this. This thing has pulled me out of a few jams that where capacitors actually look good. The capacitance, regular cap meter, read the capacitance pretty close, and yet the device would still not function. So it's nice to have this because it'll actually help you a lot when you're checking caps. I don't trust cap meters. After I got one of these, I do not trust a cap meter whatsoever. It'll give you a baseline if you're trying to just fumble through your parts bin and just measure capacitance. If you want to just get a general idea of capacitors, cap meter would be okay. But if you're trying to test the quality of a capacitor in circuit without having to pull it out or out of the circuit, this is the way to go. So I'm going to change the caps here. I'm going to look around and see what I can find, and I'm going to put the whole thing back together, and we're going to give it a shot. And I'm going to look up this IC if I can find any data sheet for it, and we're going to take a look at what this actual IC does. In the schematic diagram, it tells you basically it's just a AF PA or something like that. So we're going to see if we can find any kind of real substance on this IC. Okay, so I've got two replacement capacitors that I found within spec here. This one actually reads 0.14, and as we told you before, around the 470 range, 0.25 is acceptable. So that's lower. That's really good. And I'll look up this other one here. And see what we get on this. 0.08. Nice. Okay, so yeah, these two capacitors be a perfect suit for replacement. So we'll try those out. Alright, so I've changed those two capacitors. I don't know where they went on the bench here. I think I may have tossed them, but oh, here they are. That one there, you can see a slight bulge in it now that I got it out. And this one here is, well, split right open. And I said, okay, well, let me check out the case cover here, see what's going on, see if it actually exploded. Oh yeah, it's right there. Dented the, well, not dented, but it spooged out on that case cover right there. So I went to go, after I replaced that in there, put all the cables back in place, I looked up the IC here. It's actually a Sanyo 5.5 watt 2-channel power amplifier, car stereo use. So this was probably installed in a lot of typical car stereo amplifiers, not amplifiers, but head units, to, you know, for your audio. So let's give it a whirl here and see how it sounds now after we've replaced the capacitor and for the IC. That sounds a lot better.
Copy 59 on my report. We take 146 kilo. Take radio 4 down take 3. Thank you.
I mean, you can't crank it up very high. I mean, it's only like a 5-watt speaker, for Christ's sake. I mean, but it's definitely a hell of a lot better than it ever was. Internal speakers, you know, they're always kind of crummy. Try if I can hook this up to the external speaker here. Well, it sounds good to me. So I think it's another one that's all set to ready to go. Put the covers back on, get everything ready to go. I mean, the internal speaker, it is what it is. So, but at least it sounds a lot better than it ever did. Well, not ever did, but it did when it came in. So it wasn't a problem with the speaker, it was a problem with the power amplifier section. So that's it. Hope it helps somebody. Alright, I got the whole case button up now. Now that we get the resonance of the case, let's see how it sounds.
Yes, Whiskey 3 and Saxon Oscar. Very good morning.
It actually sounds pretty good. Let's try the external port again.
Yes, then what? It's very, very good. What is your antenna?
Yeah, it sounds good to me. So I think that was the only complaint about the radio was you know, the sound quality. I mean, actually the amplitude too was very low and very distorted audio. So yeah, so that's how you can fix your Kenwood TS-2000 that has a low audio and distorted audio output. Check the amplifier section in the on the bottom board. So that's good. They'll be happy.
51.
All right, that's it.
52.